A very big welcome back to our podcast number 3. We have Jodi Gagné with us today, all the way from Ontario, Canada. After 30 plus years in the fast-paced world of theatre, weddings and events, Jodi knows what it's like to run on caffeine, perfectionism, and the show must go on mentally. She built a career out of making things look effortless, even when it wasn't. A very big welcome back. So you are sitting in our book on chapter 18, page 187. We've just been speaking about numbers. We'll share that soon. And it's the chapter's called The Show Must Not Go On. From perfectionism to possibility. And I love that. You know, you say happiness is not a checklist. Wow. And I can tell you right now, my husband, happiness is not a checklist. You know, you say there's now a softness I never knew. And that's interesting because I hit a softness at a certain age as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you on this. Now there is a deep understanding, kindness, and compassion for the judged and criticized parts of me that once believed they were never enough. I used to live a double life. So I am looking forward to starting here and you letting us know a little bit more about this, please.
It's interesting to be able to sort of see it in print and it's like almost immortalizes a big way that I showed up in my life and to recognize that I was putting on a performance, but I didn't even realize I was putting on a performance. It's only within the last few years, and probably more even the last year, that I finally heard that judgment, finally heard that critic in a way I had never actually heard it before. It was always this quiet hum. And all of a sudden, I just recognized how much I was constantly pushing myself as if I needed to prove that who I was enough. Please accept me, just looking to belong. And it was meeting face to face with that softness that I think that's what I was searching for. Just this acceptance of an acknowledgement of who I am as enough. And you realize that when you turn to anything, especially if there's a charge to it, but if you turn to it with just a little bit of compassion and kindness and tenderness, there's an opening that happens. It's there, and there is a softening, and that's probably the gift that I received, especially amidst the chaos of what my life may have looked like and the way that I showed up in my life. Though I was very, very personality A, I think they call it, right? Where very much into detail. My lists had lists, and I was good at what I did, but I missed out on a lot of life because that is the way I showed up. It was to perform a task. And then you realize that there's so much more to life. There's a deeper connection and intimacy that you can have with yourself and with others that you miss out on when you're always looking to strive.
And so I'm listening and I want to go back. So when did it get messy? What happened?
I don't think I can actually put my finger on it. The best way to explain it is I recognize that at some point there was an erosion that happened, and it wasn't until I became more aware of how I was, or even it was more when I committed to becoming more aware, this willingness to look at some of the ways I was reacting, some of the ways that I was showing up. That is probably when I came face to face with this sense of I lost touch with myself, but I can't tell you when it was. Yes, there were certain things in my life that showed up, but there was always this perseverance. There was always this, get up and dust yourself off and move on. And a lot of people that you commend that. There's strength, there's resilience in that. And I think that was the reward I sought. Look at
Mm.
Jodi. Like she's got it. She's holding it all together. And so there is this bravado that you put on, and then you start to believe it as the truth. And it's not until you give yourself this space to start, scratch at the surface and really get curious of what is going on. But I didn't go there. I lovingly refer to myself as a head case. And so everything stayed above the neck. And I was okay. Everything is fine. It's good enough. It is what it is, kind of thing. But I didn't have the capacity to sort of get curious about, is there anything deeper that's going on that I just may not be privy to?
I see you have busyness became my shield. And I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that as well. Busyness became my shield. Even now, at times, it's more fun to be busy and in that chaotic zone than not. And you've got hustle became my normal. And I know for those women out there that are entrepreneurs that are listening, it does feel like every day is a bit of a hustle. You say, I knew the show must go on mentally better than anyone. And so how did that feel when you realized it didn't need to?
Hmm. What's interesting is that I found checking things off my list as a relief. There was a relief to it. There was something I could focus my attention on and do. And then move on to the next. It was this beautiful assembly line. And I think when I was forced to stop, so in 2020, COVID hit, and all of a sudden my wedding career came to a screeching halt. It was the one thing that weddings couldn't survive. It was this social distancing. We couldn't have gatherings. It was illegal, especially in Canada. We had a lockdown for about a year and a half, if not 2 years. There was lots of rules and stuff. And when you have a jam-packed schedule that all of a sudden gets wiped clean, you are confronted, because that's how it felt. I was confronted with silence. And then it was, once the silence was like everywhere and I couldn't do anything to keep myself busy, there was this fog that just started to lift. And it was in that moment that I recognized that it wasn't even then, it's probably more now, that I mistook my roles, my responsibilities, my obligations as who I was, which is all transactional. What can I do for you? And when you are forced in the stillness, you are really forced looking at yourself and saying, am I showing up the way I intend to show up? Am I having the kinds of conversations that I wish to have? Am I having connections that are fulfilling and meaningful? And who am I without all of this shit that we have collected along the way? That's probably my realization of that. Being busy, there was comfort. I love the dopamine hit of adrenaline and cortisol running through my bodies and job well done, right? Again, it's transactional. It's a reward for the effort that I put in. But to sit in silence, there's no gold medal. As much as I have been craving a gold medal for the effort that I am putting into this self-awareness and this being mindful of how I show up and what it is I'm saying, how I'm responding and stuff, you realize that the reward is in itself of just being with whatever is.
I'm listening to you, and I'm also wanted to read something here that where you said, I have a theory. We might not be as okay as we think we are. but the world is so damn noisy. How can we even tell? And of course, this leads into that COVID time when everything went quiet and we had that time, and you go on to say, when depression hit me like a freight train in my mid 30s, I spent most of my days in bed, um, railed against my own weakness, trying to snap out of it. I was completely depressed, directionless, and burnt out. Can I ask you, did you have children around this time?
Yeah, so they were about 9 and 10
Okay,
when when this happened. Yeah.
in your mid 30s. Because I know sometimes, a lot of women, when they first have those babies and they might be at home and their life's changed and who are they now, they go through sort of a bit of a stage there as well. And,
Mm.
you go on to say, it wasn't until I finally slowed down and looked below the surface that I realized how not okay I was. The ache wasn't loud, it was quiet and constant, like a hum beneath everything. Once I finally stopped long enough to feel it, it was everywhere, and I couldn't take fine. I couldn't fake fine anymore. So, grab this book, guys. Find out so much more about Jodi, and also um, where you went, what happened, and how you were able to turn that around. So you went on to say, I learned a lesson from a horse that took me even deeper into myself. When the horse turned and walked away from me, I felt my heart being torn out. I remember feeling this intense pain of rejection. It's really funny because horses have these massive hearts, 5 times our size, and we want to connect with them. But they're such interesting creatures. And do you know, when one of my horses does that to me, I turn around. Now, they may not have told you this when you were at the equine therapy, but when you turn around, the horse then sees you more as the boss. So when the horse turned around from you, it was trying to let you know it was the leader. And when I turn around and I just stand there and I just wait patiently,
Mm.
um, they'll turn around and come up because then they're curious. It's a bit like follow the leader, isn't it, with horses?
That is interesting. It's an interesting. It is also interesting because obviously there's no language being, we're not having a conversation with the horse. And I think what was amazing is what I was able to take from that experience,
Mhm.
because everyone else is, touching the horses, interacting. And what I took from it was this not enoughness, this powerlessness that I couldn't even put words onto it until I sat in a circle and was able to sort of share how I was feeling. And it was so in my face that that is how I felt my entire life. This just waiting to be rejected, just knowing that I didn't quite belong unless I had something of value, unless I was useful, unless I need to ensure that you needed me in some way so I can solidify my place in the tribe, if you will. And so it it was an opportunity for me to really have this incredible, I don't know, revelation, I guess, and no words were exchanged. I think it was just such an incredibly sacred experience, um, to be able to get so much out
Mm.
of quote unquote nothingness. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was such a beautiful. It did not feel beautiful at the time. Okay, I'll be honest
No,
with you. That did not feel beautiful. It did rip something open inside that was very raw and tender. But I can look at it now with this. What an incredible initiation that was, to be able to be guided to meet myself at an even deeper, a deeper level, to be able to hold space for myself where no one has been able to hold space for me before. And I was able to do that for myself with the guidance of the horses. It was sacred, absolutely.
yeah. And can I ask you, how did you feel writing your chapter for Empower? What does it, you've got the book there now, haven't you?
I do.
How does it feel, you know, becoming that author, being able to see your chapter, releasing this into the world. A lot of people and people listening here may want to write a story, but they just may be holding it back because once the words are released, they're out there, aren't they?
No, absolutely. It was interesting. I didn't really think through the outcome or the end result. I think my intention for putting my story onto paper was to honor the journey, was to really look at all of the experiences I had as valid. It was required for who I am stepping into, who I am finally welcoming home. And that's what this book represented. It was really to honor, just the incredible upside down, inside out experience that I had to get to this moment. And just hoping that if someone maybe sees themselves in it or they can resonate with one or two things that I share, it's really to letting them know that they're not alone, and there are other people out there that are feeling the same way that they're feeling, and to seek that connection with others so that you can be reassured that you are not alone. That's probably the biggest intent for writing this chapter.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing it. It's definitely a really powerful chapter. You've got here the real aha came when I realized I was following invisible rules that I never questioned.
Mm.
Isn't that interesting? Because we ourselves as human beings make up so many rules, don't we? That
Yeah.
we that we follow. They're not even other people's rules, but we've made up all these rules. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, if you look at everything in this world as information, and the way that we relate to that information dictates the quality of our experience. So if I am following rules, I picked up these rules based on information that I received from an experience and then made meaning to that. I interpreted a certain way of how I was supposed to behave, my how appropriate I needed to be, being the good girl, getting the good grades, whatever that may look like. And they're invisible because it was a strategy that I never paid attention to. It was just my means of getting through the day or getting through the world as unscathed as possible. It's when you stop and you start challenging certain thoughts or beliefs that you may have held and start to question them, is this actually in support of the best version of myself, or is this in support of who I wish to be in this circumstance? All of a sudden now those invisible rules don't have the power that they once had on you, because you are now extremely intentional about how you're responding, as opposed to reverting to the autopilot or that knee-jerk reaction of just to discharge whatever discomfort. Now I sit in discomfort. I'm getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Comfortable. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And that's so important to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable because that's where
Yeah.
all the gems lie, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times on retreats, we want to make people as comfortable as possible so that we can pull them outside their comfort zone. Um, and you've got here 3 empowerment tips. So I just want to go through those with
Okay.
you. And I just love you to share a little bit more because with each of these podcasts, each of these chapters that we're going through, it'd be great for the listener to take on one that could be important to them and to practice that over the week and just to see where it takes them because these are your empowerment tips because we've all been disempowered in life, whether it's through
Mm.
ourselves, whether it's through another person or a different leader, but most of it once again comes back to the way we see, the way we react to the situations. And I'm going to just go through those. So we'll start with the first one, get curious. Actually, I'm going to say the whole three first. Get
Okay.
curious, not critical. 2, find your interrupter. 3, don't skip the dip. All right, so let's get a little bit more curious with our first one. Get curious, not critical.
It's being open, not having a personal agenda, just being okay with what is and seeing where it may lead without trying to control the outcome or your expectations of it. I think that's and not beating yourself up, because it's so easy to point the fingers like at yourself or at somebody, at the circumstance or situation. But getting cured, to me, I think curiosity is probably one of the most incredible gifts that we have, because it supports and celebrates being open to what is.
I love that. Getting curious is so important, isn't it? To ask more questions. And being present, not
Mm,
expecting an outcome. A lot of the times, if we can just be fully present in the moment, it allows us to get a bit more curious instead of our head going, oh, we've got to go and do this and we've got to go and do that. Oh, this person's saying this. I wonder why they're saying that. I wonder why that it means that to them. And, curiosity to me is one of the best leadership skills, along with reflection, is to be curious to why things are happening, to why the staff have done things a certain way, instead of going, no, that's not what's supposed to happen. We've got to do this. Like, finding out why. Maybe there wasn't a process. Maybe someone else told them. Maybe someone hadn't shown them. But you get a deeper understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, why others are doing what they're doing, when we're a little bit more curious. So I
absolutely. And
absolutely love that.
and being and being curious about why did I react that way?
Yeah,
Why,
yeah, yeah.
I think just to have that reflection too as a leader of like, oh, that's interesting. I noticed a charge when that person approached me and challenged my opinion or my share. I could feel that. Like, what is that? Where is that coming from? And can I hold space for that? That's interesting. I
Yeah,
wonder, right? And that's what's huge. It's not so much too, it's of looking out towards others. It's why am I? What have I made this moment mean? What have I made? What have I interpreted this interaction to be? Because then all of a sudden you have access to this incredible compassion when the tables are turned and you're like, oh my gosh, I could feel where this person might be coming from. I can sense the frustration of not being able to communicate. And so that curiosity gives everyone permission to be able to be open to looking at things with this incredible larger perspective without having tunnel vision.
Mm. And Jodi, I saw that all in play at the leadership retreat in Italy. Like, it was wonderful having you there. I loved your curiosity. I loved you sitting within moments that could be uncomfortable, all comfortable, but making great choices,
Mm,
and I remember one morning you came up for the early sunrise with me. It was just some moments are spectacular that you can't take away. And
mm.
so I love that. Get curious, not critical. So good. Find your interrupter. Let us know a little bit more.
Okay, so we are for the most part autopilot, right? I believe that the percentage is 5% of our day is conscious, which means 95% of the things that we do are unconscious, completely unknown to us. So we need an interrupter, something that will interrupt the autopilot, will help to create a little space between trigger and reaction that will force us to just stop, take a step back, and not go into the habitual, this is how I react when someone comes at me this way. It that has been a life changer for me, because we all know that little, sometimes the trigger reaction or the activation reaction is like instantaneous. And what people don't realize is that it's a skill to widen that gap. You have to cultivate and practice creating this capacity to be able to have this incredible space between activation and reaction. It does not come naturally. I'm telling you, in the beginning, it was emotions one, Jodi zero every single time. I was hijacked. And so it takes practice, it takes focus, it takes discipline, and it takes a crap ton of compassion when you fall flat on your face going, all right, next time. Because you know there's going to be a next time. So finding an interrupter, something that you can hold on to or turn to when you are cultivating the skill of being able to be more responsive as opposed to reactive.
So what's yours? What's your go-to?
Mine is tapping, EFT, emotional
Right.
freedom techniques, because what it does, it ends up calming your nervous system, right? Sends the message to your amygdala saying this isn't a threat. That is why people are reacting.
Mm.
Something that has been filed in their system as a threat, which is why everyone reacts. And it's different for everybody. So it's again just recognizing that what might be threatening to you may not be threatening to me. But the tapping, so think acupuncture, but without the needles, it allows me to take that breath, to be able to tap into my nervous system, to stress reduction technique, if you will, to be able to bring down the false alarm and then to get curious about, oh, what is going on, even though this happened. So being mindful, being on the present and focusing on the problem, but also being able to say, that's okay, even though I might be feeling frustrated with the situation. That's okay. I am open to showing myself compassion anyways. Like it is an honest conversation that you are able to start to have with yourself. And
Mm.
that's the thing that you had chatted with me about. It's until you start to scratch below the surface and you realize how not okay you are. EFT, time and time again, I'm like, where the heck was that hiding? Because you are so good at pushing through. I'm good. It's fine. It's fine. It's good. It's okay. Whatever. But you realize that that is a numbing. Like that is a perfect way to ignore, to deny, to avoid. And we need more interrupters to interrupt the pattern.
Mm. Wow, I love that. I'm sitting there going, my gosh, there was a time probably about a year ago. I forget what it was, but there was a lot of stress that was happening, and my head swelled here. I lay in bed
Mm,
and I could feel my head was swelling. I was like, oh my God, am I going to die? Is it cancer? What the hell? And I just started tapping, tap, I'm well, I'm
yeah.
well, I'm well, I'm well, I'm well, I'm well, I'm well. And until it started to go down, and it did go down. It hasn't come back up again. I should probably see a doctor. I don't know if
But
you
it,
heard
but
about it as well.
no, but
But
that's
I,
the thing. But you think about the fact that your body knows how to heal. Your body
yeah,
knows what it needs to do to be able to support itself. We get in the way. Tapping
yeah.
allows us to be able to get out of that way by addressing the human part of us that is feeling a certain way, but also to build this bridge of communication between our mind, our heart, and our body and our soul to sort of let them all know, like, hey, we're all here. Like, we're at the board meeting and we're having this conversation. What is it that we can do to support this vessel the best way we can? That's what
Mhm.
tapping is for me.
Yeah.
It is opening up the lines of communication.
Well, it definitely worked for me. Another thing sometimes is that pink elephant, just break up something, do something different, something
Yeah.
random. But, my little daughter wanted to, well, didn't want to get a needle. And I took her to the doctor. She was knowing she was getting a needle. The doctor pulled out and she cried. She said, I'm not getting a needle. And so we left. And so next time I sort of said to the doctor, don't mention getting a needle and pull the needle out. And so he said, I want you to wiggle your little toe, and he touched the toe. So I always think wiggle my little toe on my left foot. And he put the needle in one arm, then he said wiggle the toe, and then he did the needle on the other arm. And then she walked down. She said, "Look, mummy, no needles." And she'd had two needles. And
Mm.
so it's really interesting that we can do this, that we can, find that interrupter. And because I have to get needles every 6 months, I now do the same thing because the ones I've got to get are really painful.
Mm,
And I do the same thing. I just say, tell me when you're going to do it, and I'll just wiggle my little right toe. Focus on something different. So this is great. And also that tapping works. My head during that half an hour went down. I'm like, how is this even possible?
mm.
Don't skip the dip. Let's hear your empowerment tip number 3. Don't skip the dip.
So I would say it was about last May. I was having more breakdowns than breakthroughs, and I happened to share it on LinkedIn. And I had a friend who commented, um, the skips are necessary. No, the dips are necessary. Sorry, the dips are necessary. So I made the joke. I'm like, oh, don't skip the dip. Because I realized that what I was experiencing at that time was the messy middle. I was experiencing the void, that liminal space of what is this? There was nothing to cling to, nothing to hold on to. I didn't know who I was. There was nothing that made sense. I didn't understand. And what you recognize is that that's the space that we don't push through. That's the space where you are able to sort of sit with what is, be okay with what is, and trust that it will reveal itself if you don't fight it. That space, that messiness opened the door for the most meaningful conversations I've ever had, because I was able to start to share with people in my inner circle of like, oh, this is something that I'm experiencing, and not too sure what it was, but we were just engaging in conversation, and the connections I had with people that were talking about something that couldn't quite put your finger on it, but people were able to relate to it. They were like, oh, I felt the same thing. I'm not right. And then the ability to be able to ask for support. I used to be one of those people that my husband would be like, hey, you need a hug? And I'd be like, nope, don't touch me, because I can't afford to unravel. And so it was like, don't touch me, because I knew that. And in May, as I was going through this massive upheaval, he says, do you need a hug? And I said, yes. And I unraveled. But there was this incredible relief to be held, to be comforted, to not anyone having the answers, but just to hold space for that uncertainty and the unknown, for someone to say, I got you. I got you. And I've never experienced like that kind of receiving before in such a way where no one needed or wanted anything from me, but they were there to just offer as much as they could. Yeah. And that was the incredible gift from the messy middle. And now I look forward to them. I did not before, because now I look at it. I look at it as that it's a necessary process of our evolution. It's totally part of it. It's you look at everything. There's a life or death for everything. Conversations, relationships, projects. And when you can look at it, I'm like, oh, that's the rhythm of life. And the messy middle is just the transition period between a life and death cycle. How incredible is that? All of a sudden, it just becomes so much more part of the whole the sacred cycle, and you don't have to fight it anymore.
Allowing those doors to shut.
And allowing and to trust that the next door will open. That as a leaf finally falls from the tree, it doesn't hold on going, no, I don't know, right? There's just a letting go, right? Like it's challenging though when you're in that space, especially when you have no orientation. It's hard to navigate your way through. And that's another thing, like putting these kinds of comments or these kinds of stories on paper allows other people to know, oh, that's what that was. There's nothing wrong with me. That is part of this incredible cycle we call life. It just makes sense of things that don't make sense.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you a random question before we go into the dice. What did becoming the woman you are today cost you, and was it worth it?
That's an interesting question. Because it's interesting because the thought is like, it it's not that I've lost anything. I still have the same experiences I had. I still have the same relationships that I have, but the quality has changed. So I don't know if I can talk about the cost of it. I think what it required of me was to dig deep. What it required of me was to trust. What it required of me was to not abandon myself, to become loyal to myself, to become more sincere with believing that I already belonged. So I don't know if that's a cost, but it required a lot of faith and trust that who I am is enough. And was it worth it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
I
should
know.
have
At the
asked you
time
if I
going
was
through,
allowed.
you're like,
I should have
"Oh,
asked you if I was allowed to swear in the beginning.
yes, I'm sure no one minds. Um, you know, when we're talking about perfection and not being perfect, and somehow I lost my cards this morning, but I have my dice. And I do have the dice questions here, just not on my
Okay.
card. I don't know if you can see them. So each number comes into one of these questions that I'm going to ask. But before I do, because this is our wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with your audience around your chapter? Anything to do with empowerment or just anything at all?
No, but I'd just love to share my appreciation for getting to the opportunity to meet you back in Italy.
Oh,
So, yeah. So that's it, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be able to have a platform where I can share my story and have very fulfilling conversations. So, yeah. So no, thank
thank
you.
you for saying yes, and hopefully it's just the beginning. You know, it was interesting because you were saying you're hoping your chapter was number 16, which I didn't know, but it was 9, which is our shedding. So just give us just a couple of things on your numbers, and then we'll go into
Mm.
the dice numbers.
So, chapter 18 in numerology, 1 plus 9 is, 1 plus 8 is 9. There, now we know Jodi was not a mathematician. So 1 plus 8 is 9, which is an end of a cycle. And so I thought it was perfect because I honestly felt that the last 4 or 5 years have been a one long cycle. So it was nice to honor my story in a finishing way, if you will, for that particular chapter of my life. So 9 as the completion I thought was perfect. And I'm on page 187, which is 16. And 16 happens to be my favorite number. Like, my child was born on the 16th of July. My daughter was born on the September the 7th, which is 16. If you look at July, you look at September, it's 7 and 9 is 16. Like, there's so much with 16 that to me it was just this other little source saying, "Yep, Jodi, you
Wow.
did good."
I love that. It's these little signs in life sometimes that we don't see. We think things are tough, and I'll be walking along, and then next minute the feather's in front of me again. And I'm like, okay, I'm on my right path. It's okay. You know, we're not going this alone, like you said before. So those of you that are listening that think that's a little woo-woo, I think there's a lot more to everything than we know. Yeah.
I believe that.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I'm a little bit like that. And I said, well, that's interesting because my next book is 16, called 16 Seconds, because so much happens at 16 and so much can happen in 16 seconds. All right, so here we go. We're going to have a roll of the dice. Let's see what number you get here. Whoa, it's number
Okay.
2. All right, let's have a look at number 2. The truth no one sees. Here's your question. What's something about you that surprises people once they really know you?
Okay, that's the one thing that came to me. I like dad jokes. So probably my sense of humor.
I love that. And by the way, we did start today with one that no one else heard, so you're going to have to share it now.
Oh no. Does it just get its debut? I
Yes.
can say, all right, okay. So he's having a conversation with gravity, but he just keeps bringing me down. That's so funny. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I love it. It's the perfect dad joke ever. Perfect dad joke. Oh, I feel so good. I can't wait to share that we've just immortalized this meme. You're
I love
welcome,
it.
world.
I, you're welcome. Thank you. You know, that's what happens when you speak about gravity. All
Love
right.
it.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
you, for sharing authentically within this chapter. There's so much more than what you've just heard here. There's more about Jodi in here. There's also places where you can link with Jodi for what she's doing now in the world. Grab your book, Empower Her. And I just closed up on something I wanted to end with. Let me end here. So, what this all means is it's no longer sacrificing joy for the pursuit of perfection, but choosing again and again to be present, to meet life as it is and remain open to receive it all. Bye for now, everyone. Keep empowering. Speak soon.